Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, and welcome to another episode of The Booth. What we're going to be doing today is looking at this guy, David Wood, who is a Christian apologist and someone who's vehemently averse to Islam and its teachings, has made a living of attacking Muslims and the Islamic teachings, whilst, funnily and ironically enough, when he comes to present his own doctrines and his own beliefs, he fumbles all over the place and embarrasses himself in a way which is really laughable, if anything could be said about it at all. So what we're going to be doing now is just looking at two small clips, and just to see even someone as in the Christian community as celebrated, you could say, in some corners of the Christian community, and someone as spending all of his life doing his polemics as David Wood, can't explain some basic tenets of Christianity. So let's take a look at some of those things together. This is one of the questions that he was asked. Take a look.
And I'm not claiming to be an expert on this.
My name is Ahmad, and this is a question for Dr. Wood. It's a little bit different about what we've been talking about today, but it's about the nature of Jesus. In 1 John 3:20, it says, if our hearts condemn us, we know that God is greater than our hearts, and he knows everything. In Mark 13:32, it says, but about that day or hour no one knows, not even the angels in heaven, nor the Son, but only the Father. So if Jesus is God, how do you not know about the hour or the day? Thank you.
Yeah, and that's I would say that's probably the best verse to bring up if you were challenging the deity of Christ. But this is similar to the earlier question in how can God die, right? If you're just saying God as he is in himself eternally, well, that would make no sense for God to die. If you're talking about God as he eternally exists, not knowing something, that would not make sense. If you're talking about the incarnate, the divine Son becoming incarnate, well, then you have two natures, and this is tricky, and I'm not claiming to be an expert on this, but if you take the doctrine of the incarnation seriously, if you read in Philippians chapter 2, that Jesus, being in very nature God, or being in the form of God, did not consider that equality with the Father, something to be held onto, but made himself nothing, taking on human likeness. If you take that seriously, then you have to ask, okay, when you have the incarnate Jesus as a baby, what level of understanding of everything does he have? Does he learn as he goes along? And again, this wouldn't make sense if you're just talking about God as he exists in himself, but we can have these kinds of discussions if we're talking about Jesus actually becoming a man. And so you have different interpretations of the text, but I don't see that it's inconsistent with maintaining the deity of Christ if we acknowledge that Jesus did become a man, and that if God is in some sense laying aside his glory to wrap himself in human flesh, that maybe he could say in those circumstances, as the incarnate Son, he didn't know something.
No wonder why this individual, to be honest with you, he doesn't talk about his religion. I mean, if you look at, obviously, his publications, his videos, and all these kinds of things, he's very, very hesitant, or if anything, very evasive to talk about his own doctrinal beliefs. And the reason why, simply spoken, is because when he does speak about it, he's hesitant, he's fumbling, and he has no answers to very basic questions. Start by saying, I'm not an expert. Why do you need to be an expert on something in order to understand the very fundamentals, the basics of belief? The truth is, he couldn't square the circle. It was a contradiction, and he couldn't square the circle. It's something so big that, in fact, there were whole councils ecumenical councils that attempted to square this circle. Look at 451, the Council of Chalcedon, for example. This was another council that attempted to, when Nestorianism came into play, they tried to reconcile the so-called divinity of Jesus and the human nature of Jesus. And they say that Jesus is one and two. He's got two sides. He's a split personality. He's a bipolar. He's got schizophrenia, maybe, right? He is a God, but he's a human at the same time. How does it work? So who died on the cross? Was it the Jesus God or was it the Jesus human? And where was the Jesus God when the Jesus human was being killed? What happened when it was saying, Eli, Eli, lama sabachthani, or limada taraktani in Arabic? Same thing. Why have you forsaken God? God, why have you forsaken me? Where was Jesus then? Where was Jesus the God then to help Jesus the Son or the human then? Were they separate? Is it literally you become human and you become man? By the hour, did you change? I mean, how does it work? Where does the God go if the Jesus human is there? Is he not always in the human? Think about it. I mean, this is a serious contradiction. And so, instead of dealing with the contradictions that plague the very fundamentals of your religion, you try and attack another religion because you know the reality is that Christians are becoming atheists in your country because that does not make sense to them. Look at America, the very country you live in. Why wouldn't they leave that religion? I mean, it doesn't make any, there's no coherence, there is no consistency whatsoever. David, it's enough. You've humiliated yourself enough, honestly. David, you've been talking about Islam. You've been talking about something which you're not a specialist in, you're not an expert in. In this very video, you're an ultra-crepidarian. You're an ultra-crepidarian. In that very video, you said, I'm not an expert in the divinity of Jesus. So I'm not gonna do a good job in answering this question, this contradiction, which is meant to constitute the very basics of your religion. The Trinity is the basics of your religion. The divinity of Christ, the basics of your religion. You're not an expert on that, so my answer is not going to be that good. When it comes to Islam, a religion which you're certainly not an expert in, you speak about it all day, every day. You see, you have no basis for speaking about a religion. If you're really fearful of representing something which you're not a specialist in, why speak about Islam? Why speak about Islam? If you're fearful that, okay, I'm going to be speaking about something which I'm not a specialist in, I'm not an expert in, so why speak about Islam? How do you know that you're not going to fumble all over the place as you have been? The only difference between your fumbling here and your fumbling when you talk about Islam is that when you talk about Islam, you fumble with confidence. But when you talk about Christianity, you realize it's the thorn, it's the doubt in your side. It's the doubtful thorn in your side. That you know that you can never maintain this religion if you talk about it, if you present it just as it is. Present the creed of the Christianity of the Romans, the 7 ecumenical councils, the Nicene Creed, the Constantinople Creed, the Chalcedon, the Chalcedon Council, which we've just kind of talked about now, and you'll see that people will not understand. It's rationally inconsistent. There's another video which I want to actually watch quickly. It's really interesting when David Wood talks about his own religion. Let's take a look at this.
All right. We'll start with questions for Dr. Wood. Please identify who you are and then, of course, your question.
Okay. Hello. Yeah, my name is Farouk Yusuf, and question is for Dr. Wood. If we replace the word Jesus with the word God, as many Christians believe Jesus and God are one and the same, then to claim God died and was raised from the dead does not seem to fit the definition of God, who has no beginning or end. God is not born and does not die. Please explain. Thank you.
Do it from here?
Yes.
Yeah, and you're absolutely correct that if we're saying that Jesus is God and then we say that Jesus died, then a natural question that would arise is, how can God die? God isn't the sort of thing that can die. But you're ignoring something, which is the incarnation, right? Whether you believe it or not, that's how we'd reconcile. And to give you an idea of what this would mean, let me turn to the Quran here for a moment. This is a Quran.
And
Before we continue, look, here we go again. Hard question being posed. It was a simple question. And the guy, instead of answering it directly, strategically talks about the Quran. He diverts his attention to the Quran. Answer the question according to your own principles and religious doctrines. No, let's talk about the Quran. It's as if someone's asking me about physics and I give them a biological example. This is a very clear strategy that missionaries are using now. And that's what I've experienced in the last couple of years when I've gone to speak at school now. They don't want to engage on their own doctrines. They just want to engage on social things that in Islam are against, say, Western or liberal values. What's that got to do with the question at hand? What's that got to do with coherence? What's that got to do with rationality? What's that got to do with consistency? What's that got to do with contradiction? What's that got to do with truth? It's got very limited, it's not anything to do with these things. In fact, it's an emotional argument at best sometimes. Let's take a look at what he says anyways.
Islam, at least if you're an Orthodox Muslim, the Quran is Allah's eternal word. It has no beginning, it has no end, it can't be created, it can't be destroyed. And yet, I open this Quran and it has a publication date, 1994. It's made of paper and glue and ink. It will eventually fall apart. This Quran will eventually fall apart. So think about this.
Look at the ignoramus. Look at the ignoramus. Look at how he humiliates himself by talking about theological issues he has no understanding of. Look at the fool. He's equating now. He thinks the Quran is the mushaf he's holding in his hand, the book he's holding in his hand. He's saying, look, it's got a publication date. It's meant to be no beginning, no end, but it's got a publication date. Are you an idiot? Have you got understanding? Have you got a problem with comprehension? The Quran is kalam of Allah, is the words of Allah. The mushaf is what's written. You're confusing the mushaf, which is the book that's written, and the Quran, which is actually comes from the word qira'ah, which means something which is recited, and we believe it was recited from Allah. So, I mean, this is such a basic thing, which shows your ignorance of Islam on a very fundamental level, that I'm actually shocked that people listen to you and take you seriously. Let's continue listening to what you have to say anyways.
How can Allah's eternal, uncreated, incorruptible word have a beginning and eventually fall apart? And the answer, according to Islamic theology, is that the Quran has two natures. It's the
No one in the whole of Islamic world has ever said the Quran has two natures. You have to give evidences if you want to make a claim. You can't just say that. No one says the Quran has two natures. No one has phrased it like that. You ignorant person.
eternal word of Allah, but it enters into our world in a physical form made of paper and glue and ink. And so this Quran has two natures, and since it has entered into our world and taken on a physical form, it can be corrupted, it can be destroyed, even though that wouldn't make sense to talk like that of the eternal Quran. So if that's Islamic theology, I don't know how we can look at John 1:1. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God, and the Word became flesh and dwelt among us. And since the Word, which was God, entered creation and took on a human nature, then he could die. If you say that's false or illogical or incoherent, I don't know how you would do so without
what a fallacy that is. I mean, how embarrassing, really. How embarrassing that is. How embarrassing that is. Don't embarrass yourself any further. I'm not going to give you the chance to embarrass yourself any further. What I am going to say is this. If you're saying that the Word became flesh, so really and you're saying that this Logos, this Word, this Jesus is God. The flesh is God. If you're saying the flesh is God, you've narrowed it down for us. There's no longer the contradiction. Here you have the flesh died. If the flesh died, God did die, according to you. If you want to take that verse seriously. But you're going to say, no, it was the human Jesus that died. But if the divine Jesus is the human Jesus, and the Word is the flesh, and the flesh died, then it will be a contradiction not to say that the flesh and the Jesus that is the flesh died. So you can't have your cake and eat it. You have to decide how you're going to rectify, reconcile this contradiction of faith. Because my friend David, and you're not really my friend, people are running away from your religion because of this. People are leaving Christianity. People are becoming atheists. People are becoming Muslim. Look at the Pew Research on it. Look at the census data. You have to find the answers quickly. And you know what? The problem is this. I don't blame you because you're an intelligent man in some capacities. You can't find the answers. It's just fighting a losing argument. That's what you're doing. You can't do it. But I'll give you a chance anyways, because us Muslims are charitable. It's your last chance. I'll give you a chance. I will come to you, or you will come to me. What I want to do is really expose you, because you need to be exposed. You're a fraudster. You are a fraudster. You have no knowledge of Islam. You have very limited knowledge of Islam, and that limited knowledge is only crumbs of knowledge, really, that you put together to make your own rotten bread, rotten wood. You make your own rotten loaf that your people then consume and become sickened with. The reality is this. You're weak on theology, especially Islamic theology. Even your own theology, you have no understanding of it. So now it's a chance for you. Now it's a chance for you, my boy. That's right, boy. I will come to you, boy. Or you can come to me, boy. All we can do is have a debate on a foundational issue. The debate must be on a foundational issue. If you truly believe that your theology is superior to our theology, there's no need talking about social issues. Let's get to the foundations. You say Islam is wrong. You believe it's wrong? Foundationally, you believe in Tawheed, one God. Shema Israel, Adonai, Elohino, Adonai Echad. Say, O Israel, your Lord, our Lord is one Lord. This is what we maintain. You say, no, he's 3 and 1 and 1 and 3. Let's debate it. Let's do it. And if you don't really have it. People are going to say to you. You've been saying to Zakir and Naik, and you've been saying to these people, why are you running away? People are going to direct the same kind of comment to you. So here's your chance. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.